Welcome back to Knock Boom Creek. With me, your evil spirit bestie Knox. I know everyone wants to know how evil I am. Well, I ripped the tag off of the mattress. Yep, I'm that evil. On with our story. Nestled amidst rolling hills and shrouded in perpetual twilight lay the town of Hellsville. It was a place forgotten by time, where shadows danced with the wind and secrets whispered through the trees. A palpable sense of dread hung heavy in the air. The town's name, a chilling testament to its sinister history. Hellsville was a town steeped in folklore, built on ancient legends. Generations had come and gone, each leaving behind unsettling stories. It was a place where the veil between the living and the dead felt thin, but Hellsville harbored a secret, a terrifying truth. Every Halloween night, children vanished without a trace. They were swallowed whole by the darkness. The disappearances followed a chilling pattern. Each year, a sense of unease would settle over the town. Parents would clutch their children tighter, for they knew, deep down, that this Halloween might be the one. The disappearances had become an unspoken curse, a macabre folklore that bound the townsfolk in a shared terror. Whispers of the missing children echoed through the cobbled streets. Some whispered of ancient evils, of malevolent spirits that preyed on the innocent. Others spoke of a shadowy figure, a boogeyman that lurked in the darkness. Theories abounded, each more outlandish and terrifying than the last. Some blamed vengeful spirits, restless souls seeking retribution for past wrongs. Others pointed fingers at the old cemetery on the outskirts of town. But no one knew for sure what happened to the children. They were gone, vanished without a trace. As the years passed, the disappearances became ingrained in the fabric of Hellsville. Parents grew accustomed to the annual dread. Halloween had transformed into a night of terror. The town held its breath, trapped in a perpetual cycle of fear and uncertainty. The missing children became ghosts themselves, their memories haunting the town. Hellsville had become a prison of its own making, choked out by the suffocating grip of fear. The disappearances had cast a long shadow over Hellsville, staining its history with an indelible mark of tragedy. The town became synonymous with the macabre, its name whispered in hushed tones, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of everyday life. Tourists, once drawn to its quaint charm, now avoided Hellsville like the plague, fearing the evil that seemed to permeate its very essence. The once thriving community had become insular, its inhabitants withdrawing into themselves, haunted by the shared trauma of the missing children. The weight of their grief hung heavy in the air, a palpable presence that suffocated any attempts at normalcy. Halloween, once a time for joyous celebration, had transformed into a solemn occasion, a night of remembrance for those lost to the shadows. Yet even in the face of such unrelenting darkness, a flicker of defiance remained. A small group of teenagers, their youthful idealism undeterred by the town's grim history, refused to succumb to the prevailing fear. They had grown up on tales of the missing children, their imaginations fueled by the whispers and rumors that swirled around Hellsville. But instead of paralyzing them with fear, these stories ignited within them a burning desire for answers. They were determined to break the cycle of fear, to unravel the mystery that had plagued Hellsville for generations. Their names were Sam, Emily, Jake, and Chloe, 4 friends bound by loyalty and a thirst for the truth in their haunted town. They spent hours poring over old clippings, tracing headlines of missing children and disappearances. Meeting in secret under the old oak tree where the veil between the living and the dead felt thin. Amidst the headstones, they made a pact to uncover the truth about Hellsville's missing children. Together, their strengths complemented each other, fueling their quest for answers. They knew the truth lay buried deep within their town, shrouded in fear and silence. Their investigation led them to the outskirts of town, to a dilapidated cottage at the end of a winding lane. Here lived Miss Agatha, the town's most enigmatic resident. Whispers followed her like shadows, tales of her strange herbs and cryptic pronouncements. She could predict events before they unfolded. Some dismissed her as a harmless eccentric, a recluse with her plants and black cat Midnight. Others viewed her with suspicion, recalling ancient folklore of witches. Miss Agatha was an outcast, living on the fringes of their community, shunned by those who feared what they did not understand. Emily felt a pull towards Miss Agatha, sensing she held a piece of the puzzle. Jake remained skeptical, while Chloe saw her as a potential ally. As the friends debated Miss Agatha's role, their attention was drawn to a chilling pattern. Every year, on the eve of Halloween, Miss Agatha would vanish, only to reappear at dawn. Where did she go during those hours? Was it a coincidence, or was she connected to the disappearances in Hellsville? Driven by curiosity, the four friends staked out Miss Agatha's cottage on Halloween Eve. They hid in the bushes, hearts pounding as shadows grew longer. Miss Agatha emerged, cloaked in a long black robe. She clutched a gnarled staff, its top a grotesque creature. The friends watched as she lit a circle of candles. She chanted in a low, guttural voice, ancient and unsettling. The friends exchanged nervous glances filled with fear and fascination. As Miss Agatha's chanting reached a fever pitch, the friends huddled together, their whispers barely audible above the howling wind. They had to act fast. Sam quickly formulated a plan. They would rush her, overwhelming her with their combined strength. They would restrain her and force her to reveal what she knew. Emily voiced her concerns, feeling something wasn't right. But Sam dismissed her fears. They had come too far to turn back now. They had to see this through to the end. The four friends steeled their nerves and prepared to confront the unknown. Hidden amongst the overgrown shrubbery, the four friends settled in for their stakeout. The night air was alive with the sounds of crickets chirping and the distant rustle of leaves. Every creak of the cottage, every shadow that flickered in the candlelight emanating from within, sent shivers down their spines. Hours crawled by, each one stretching into an eternity. Doubt began to gnaw at the edges of their resolve. What if they were wrong about Miss Agatha? What if they were risking their safety for nothing more than childish superstition? Sam, ever the pragmatist, tried to rationalize their fears, but even he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over them like a shroud. Emily, her senses on high alert, felt a shift in the atmosphere. The air grew heavy, charged with a strange energy that prickled her skin. She glanced at her friends, their faces illuminated by the pale glow of the moon. They felt it too, the sense that something was about to happen, something momentous, something terrifying. Just when their nerves were stretched to the breaking point, a figure emerged from the back door of the cottage. It was Miss Agatha, her hunched figure silhouetted against the flickering candlelight. She moved with a surprising agility, her gnarled hands clutching a small leather-bound book. The friends exchanged excited glances. This was it. This was their chance to uncover the truth. As Miss Agatha disappeared into the woods behind her cottage, a figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the trees. It was a woman, tall and slender, with long flowing hair and a warm, inviting smile. She moved with an effortless grace, her footsteps silent on the soft earth. The friends watched in confusion as the woman approached their hiding place. Who was she? What was she doing here? Had she seen them? Their questions were answered when the woman stopped just a few feet from their hiding place, her smile widening as she peered into the bushes. "Well, hello there," she whispered, her voice as sweet as honey. Don't be afraid, I'm not going to hurt you." The friends froze, their bodies tense with a mixture of fear and confusion. Who was this woman, and how did she know they were there? Before they could react, the woman reached out a hand and gently parted the branches, revealing their hiding place. "I know why you're here," she said, her smile unwavering. "You're here to stop Miss Agatha, aren't you?" Emily, her intuition screaming at her to run, hung back, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. Something wasn't right. This woman was too calm, too knowing. But before she could voice her concerns, Sam, his curiosity piqued, stepped forward. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice a mixture of suspicion and awe. "And how do you know about Miss Agatha?" The woman laughed, a light tinkling sound that seemed to echo through the night. "My dear boy," she said, her eyes twinkling with amusement, "Miss Agatha is not who you think she is. She's dangerous, a menace. She's the reason the children of Hellsville disappear every Halloween." The friends exchanged uneasy glances. Could this be true? Could Miss Agatha, the reclusive old woman they had come to fear, actually be the one responsible for the town's missing children? The woman's words struck a chord deep within their hearts, igniting a firestorm of doubt and suspicion. "But why?" Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would Miss Agatha do such a thing?" The woman's smile faltered, replaced by an expression of deep sadness. "That," she said, her voice heavy with regret, "is a story for another time. Right now, we have to stop her." The friends found themselves at a crossroads, torn between their suspicion of Miss Agatha and their growing distrust of the stranger. Who could they trust? Who was telling the truth? The weight of their decision pressed down on them, heavy and suffocating. Sam, ever the pragmatist, argued in favor of hearing the stranger out. She seemed to know more about Miss Agatha than they did, and she clearly shared their desire to stop her. Emily, however, remained unconvinced. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that the stranger was hiding something. Jake, his skepticism warring with his desire to see Miss Agatha brought to justice, paced back and forth, his mind racing. Chloe, torn between her fear of Miss Agatha and her growing unease with the stranger, looked to her friends for guidance, her eyes wide with uncertainty. The night stretched on, the silence punctuated by the chirping of crickets and the distant howl of a dog. Time was running out. They had to make a choice, and soon. The fate of Hellsville, and perhaps their own, hung precariously in the balance. The air crackled with tension as the stranger laid out her plan. It was audacious, bordering on reckless. The friends, fueled by fear and righteous anger, were captivated. She spoke of a ritual, a dark enchantment that Miss Agatha was attempting to complete. This ritual was the key to her power, preying on the children of Hellsville. Their mission was to interrupt the ritual, disrupting the dark energy. It wouldn't be easy, she warned. Miss Agatha was most powerful on Halloween night. They would need to be swift, silent, and utterly ruthless. One misstep, one moment of hesitation, and their plan would crumble to dust. They emerged from the oppressive darkness into a small clearing bathed in an eerie green light. A bonfire raged, casting dancing shadows that twisted like tormented spirits. And there, silhouetted against the flames, stood Miss Agatha. Her hunched figure, draped in black robes, absorbed the light. She was chanting, her voice a low, guttural growl. The friends charged into the clearing, their makeshift weapons raised. Their shouts shattered the eerie silence. Miss Agatha, caught off guard, turned to face them. Sam swung his baseball bat with all his might. As Jake blasted her with a can of pepper spray Chloe had on a keychain, the force sent her sprawling to the ground. Miss Agatha lay on the ground, her body racked with coughs, her eyes burning from the pepper spray. The friends, their chests heaving, surrounded her, their faces a mixture of triumph and apprehension. They had done it. They had captured the witch. What do you want?" Miss Agatha gasped, her voice hoarse and weak. "We know what you are," Sam said, his voice trembling slightly. "We know about the children." Miss Agatha's eyes widened in fear. You don't understand," she croaked. "I wasn't harming them. I was protecting them." Before the friends could question her further, the stranger stepped forward, her eyes blazing with an unsettling light. "Don't listen to her," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "She's a liar, a manipulator. She'll say anything to save herself." She turned to Miss Agatha, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "Isn't that right, Agatha?" she purred. "Or should I say Lilith?" A collective gasp escaped the friends as the stranger's words sank in. Lilith, the name hung in the air, heavy with ancient dread. It was a name whispered in hushed tones, a name synonymous with darkness and evil, a name that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened skeptics. Miss Agatha, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and urgency, struggled to sit up, her gaze fixed on the faces of the four friends. "Don't believe her," she rasped, her voice barely a whisper. "She's the real danger, the true monster. I was trying to protect you from her." The friends hesitated, torn between their distrust of Miss Agatha and the growing unease they felt in the presence of the stranger. Who were they supposed to believe? Who was telling the truth? Miss Agatha, her voice gaining strength, continued to plead with them, her words tumbling over each other in her haste to convince them. "She's tricked you," she gasped. "She lured you here, turned you against me. She needs me out of the way so she can complete her ritual, unleash her power on this town." She reached out a trembling hand towards them, her eyes filled with a desperate hope. "Please," she begged. "You have to believe me. I'm not the enemy. She is..." The air crackled with tension as the friends grappled with this shocking revelation. They had stumbled into a conflict far older and more sinister than they could have ever imagined. And now, the fate of Hellsville rested on their young shoulders. The stranger's laughter echoed through the clearing, a chilling sound that sent shivers down their spines. "Foolish children," she hissed, her voice dripping with disdain. "Did you really believe that old hag? She's been playing you from the start, feeding you lies to protect her own skin." She turned her gaze on Miss Agatha, her eyes blazing with a cold fury. "But your games end tonight, Lilith," she snarled. "Your reign of terror is over." With a swift, predatory movement, the stranger lunged towards Miss Agatha, her hand outstretched, her fingers morphing into razor-sharp claws. The friends, paralyzed with shock and confusion, could only watch in horror as the stranger attacked Miss Agatha. They had been so focused on their own suspicions, so eager to believe the worst of the old woman, that they had blindly walked into a trap. They had trusted the wrong person, and now innocent lives hung in the balance. Sam, his senses reeling, was the first to react. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice hoarse with fear and adrenaline. "You're hurting her!" The stranger paused, her claws inches from Miss Agatha's throat, and turned to face them, her eyes burning with a malevolent light. "Get out of my way, children," she growled, her voice low and menacing. "This is none of your concern." "We won't let you hurt her," Emily shouted, her voice trembling with fear and defiance. She didn't know who to trust, but they couldn't let this woman harm Miss Agatha. The stranger let out a chilling laugh, devoid of humanity. "You think you can stop me?" she roared, her voice a guttural growl. Her skin began to bubble and crack, melting away like wax. Her bones stretched, teeth lengthening into razor-sharp fangs. Her eyes now burned with an infernal fire. Standing before them was a creature of nightmare, a grotesque mockery of human form. Its eyes, burning with an infernal fire, pierced their souls. Terror surged through their veins. With a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the earth, the creature lunged for Emily, its claws outstretched, its jaws agape, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Emily, frozen in terror, could only watch as the creature bore down on her, its putrid breath hot on her face. At the last possible moment, a figure darted between them, shoving Emily out of harm's way. It was Miss Agatha, her frail body racked with coughs, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. The creature, caught off guard, slammed into the earth where Emily had been standing a moment before, its claws tearing through the undergrowth with a sickening crunch. "Run!" Miss Agatha screamed, her voice hoarse but steady. "I'll hold it off, but you need to get to my cottage. There's something there, something that can help." The friends, their minds reeling from the shock of the creature's attack and Miss Agatha's unexpected heroism, hesitated for a moment, torn between their fear and their desire to help the old woman. But Miss Agatha, her eyes pleading with them to flee, waved them away, her voice a desperate rasp. "Go, there's no time! Get to the cottage!" Galvanized by Miss Agatha's words and the sheer terror that clawed at their heels, the friends turned and fled, their legs pumping, their lungs burning, their footsteps echoing through the darkened woods. They could hear the creature's enraged roars behind them, each one sending a fresh wave of terror through their veins. But they didn't dare look back. They couldn't afford to waste a single precious second. The path to the cottage, once familiar, now seemed to stretch on forever, the trees closing in around them, their branches reaching out like grasping claws. The air grew thick with the stench of decay and the coppery tang of blood. The world around them, once safe and familiar, had transformed into a nightmare realm, a hunting ground for a creature of pure evil. Sam, his breath coming in ragged gasps, risked a glance over his shoulder and saw, with a sickening lurch in his stomach, that the creature was gaining on them. Its grotesque form, silhouetted against the moonlight, seemed to glide over the uneven terrain, its claws raking the ground, its eyes burning with a cold, predatory hunger. "We have to go faster!" he shouted, his voice barely audible above the pounding of his heart. "It's almost on us!" They burst out of the tree line and into the clearing, surrounding Miss Agatha's cottage, their lungs screaming for air. The cottage, bathed in the pale moonlight, seemed at once familiar and menacing. The creature was upon them, its roars shaking the very foundations of the earth. They scrambled towards the cottage door. Sam, his hand reaching for the doorknob, glanced back over his shoulder and saw that the creature was about to pounce. Sam threw open the door and they tumbled inside, the creature's enraged roar echoing behind them. Emily felt a sharp pain in her leg. The creature had scratched her and she was now bleeding. The four friends huddled together in the dark interior of Miss Agatha's cottage, their chests heaving, their eyes wide with fear. The musty scent of herbs, dust, and something ancient filled the air, prickling their nostrils. The only light came from the moon, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across the cluttered interior. Sam fumbled for a light switch, his fingers brushing against cobwebs. A click echoed, but the single bare bulb failed to illuminate. Outside, the creature roared, its heavy footsteps shaking the cottage. They were trapped, hunted, with nowhere left to run. As if summoned by their thoughts, the cottage door swung open with a bang. The friends spun around, their makeshift weapons raised. Miss Agatha stumbled through the doorway, clutching her injured arm. Chloe rushed to her side, helping her towards a chair. I couldn't stop her," she gasped. "She's too strong." "We have to get out of here," Jake said, his voice tight with panic. "No," Miss Agatha said, her voice regaining strength. "There's no time. The ritual, she's almost finished it. The answers are in there," she said, pointing at an old book. Sam, his heart pounding, scanned the pages of the ancient book, his eyes desperately searching for a way to make sense of the strange symbols. The air crackled with urgency. Miss Agatha, her voice weak but filled with hope, guided him, her words igniting a fire within him. She spoke of ancient magic, a force that flowed through all living things, a power that could be harnessed for good or evil. She spoke of balance and the delicate dance between light and darkness and the terrible consequences if that balance was tipped. You have to speak the words, complete the counter ritual. It's our only hope. Sam took a deep breath and began to read aloud from the book, his voice gaining strength with each syllable. The words felt ancient and powerful, imbued with a magic he could feel thrumming through his core. As the final syllable left Sam's lips, a wave of energy, pure and potent, erupted from the book, engulfing the cottage in a blinding white light. The air crackled and popped, the scent of ozone stinging their nostrils. Then, silence. An eerie, unsettling silence descended upon the cottage, broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing and the pounding of their hearts. Tentatively, Sam lowered the book, his eyes blinking against the after-images that danced before him. The cottage was still intact, the furniture undisturbed, but something had shifted, something profound and irreversible. The air, once thick with menace and fear, now felt lighter, cleaner, as if a suffocating weight had been lifted. Cautiously, they made their way outside, their steps hesitant, their eyes scanning the clearing for any sign of the creature. The first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon, casting a warm, golden light on the scene before them. The bonfire had burned down to smouldering ashes. The grotesque effigy surrounding it crumbled to dust. And of the creature there was no sign. Relief, overwhelming and absolute, washed over them, leaving them weak and trembling. They had done it. They had faced their fears, confronted the darkness that had haunted their town for generations, and emerged victorious. Hellsville was safe, at least for now. But even in victory, a sense of unease lingered. The events of that night had left an indelible mark on their souls. Hellsville might be safe, but the memory of the missing children remained. The town began to heal, whispers of hope replacing fear. The 4 teenagers stood against the darkness, but the scars of that night ran deep. Miss Agatha vanished without a trace. Some whispered she sacrificed herself, others that she sought peace. Her absence was felt keenly. The 4 friends returned to their lives, forever changed, their bond, a beacon of hope. The darkness lingered, waiting to resurface. As the friends got ready to celebrate one last Halloween in Hellsville, Jake grabbed his plastic pitchfork, Chloe straightened her halo, and Sam did his best Buzz Lightyear impression as they walked out the door. Emily, rubbing her scar on her leg, looked up at the mirror, and her eyes glowed red. She smiled and followed her friends out into the night. Remember to like and subscribe, and come back for more tales from Knockboom Creek. Good night.